Grace and peace to you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I'm Bishop Jack Lumanog. I'm the Bishop of the Anglican Diocese of St. Ignatius Loyola and host of the podcast Pod Bless Us, which you can find anywhere you hear your podcasts. And you can find out more about the podcast at podbless.us, podbless.us. I wasn't really planning on saying anything today, but I was challenged in a tweet out by Dr. Jamal Bryant, who pastors the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in the Atlanta area. And he said this: I demand the evangelicals call this white anarchy out now. This is ungodly, unconstitutional, and unethical. And as an evangelical myself, a pastor, as a bishop, I would tend to agree. I would have to agree with Dr. Bryant's assessment of what is going on today, because this is something I'd never thought I would see in my lifetime. And this is something I have said over and over again over the last 4 years in the presidency of Donald Trump. In that, not only has the Republican Party been taken over by Trumpism, but the church has as well. At the Michigan State House, people carrying long guns are also putting up a cross, which does not seem compatible at all. But the president earlier today made a speech to those who are sympathetic to his cause, and that he believes still that he won the election, but it was stolen from him. Mitch McConnell later delivers an impassioned speech, which is maybe a few years too late, but better late than never, saying that the election wasn't even close. And then, slowly but surely, anarchy has been descending on the United States Capitol. So serious is this that the vice president was hustled out of the chamber where he's the presider for what is normally a routine ministerial duty of the Congress and the Senate to take the certified electoral votes from each state, tabulate them, and then officially certify the president and the vice president from the November election. But that's not exactly how that went today at all. And I don't think anyone could have really foreseen this, except for the fact that the president has been rallying his base even to the point of inciting violence. And as an evangelical, back to the impetus for getting me to say something today, which I wasn't planning on it, when Pastor Jamal Bryant, Dr. Bryant from my own town here in Atlanta, says, I demand the evangelicals call this white anarchy out now. This is ungodly, unconstitutional, and unethical. That's why I'm speaking out today. So as an evangelical pastor, as an evangelical bishop, this is unacceptable. And this has gone beyond the First Amendment right that's granted to us to peaceably assemble. And this has devolved into anarchy and encouraged by the sitting president of the United States, which makes this all the more troubling. So Vice President Pence has been hustled out by his Secret Service protection detail. The Speaker of the House, who's third in line in succession, is in a safe location, as is the majority leader, Senate majority leader, the Senate minority leader, and Senator Chuck Grassley, who is the Senate President pro tem. along with Senator Kamala Harris, who was in the chamber because she's still senator from California, but she has her own Secret Service detail, and this is all to keep those in leadership in protection, under protection. But it is absolute chaos that's going on, and we really have the president of the United States who refuses to accept that all 50 states have certified the electoral votes that have been presented and that have been presented to both chambers. But then again, President Trump is going on with this mythology, with this alternate narrative that he won the election and it was stolen from him. And his response is not to go away quietly in an orderly transfer of power, but to incite violence against the Capitol Police and the National Guard. And again, this is the president who ran on the law and order platform, if you like. A lot of these supporters of President Trump are also those who are the back the blue, back the badge, Blue Lives Matter crowd, and they are actually using tear gas against Capitol Police. So God protect our police officers who are trying to keep our Capitol safe. But this is a historic day, a sad day, and also a bit of a frightening day. The other thing that strikes me, because I do a fair amount of commentary on this on the podcast, is how much restraint Capitol Police are showing these violent protesters who have basically violently overtaken the Capitol. You can't just enter the Capitol without going through a series of metal detectors, and yet there's been video footage that is circulating of these protesters who are really doing acts of domestic terrorism, how they have bypassed all of the metal detectors and they're walking around with metal flagpoles in the rotunda is absolutely astounding to me. But it is also indicative of how police deal with protesters who are of different races. Now, just think for a moment. If this was a majority brown or black crowd, what do you think? Think about this objectively. Do you think that the Capitol Police would have shown this much restraint in dealing with this unruly crowd who has basically overtaken the Capitol by force? We have two ways of policing in this country. And this is yet another instance that we can see happening in real time of how on how this is being dealt with, which is equally sad, equally heartbreaking. Because, God forbid, if this was a different crowd, my gut tells me that there would be gunfire raining down on these protesters. But since this is a majority Caucasian crowd, this is somehow not terrorism. This is somehow not anarchist type behavior. This is somehow we're just going to deal with this with tear gas and bullhorns. And you can see how, as this is behind me, these crowds have overwhelmed Capitol Police, but all of this really is really at the feet of President Trump at this point. From somebody who says he is pro-military, the National Guard is going to get involved soon. And that's at the request of the mayor of Washington, D.C. There's been a curfew that's been put in place at 6 o'clock tonight. So the president, who claims to be pro-military, pro-police, and yet encouraging his followers, encouraging his base to incite these acts of violence? Where are we as a country? God have mercy on the United States. The people have clearly spoken, and there's so much that continues to be under assault as far as presidential norms are concerned. But how this is the new normal, I refuse to be silent about it. So thank you, Dr. Jamal Bryant from New Birth Baptist Church, for encouraging me to speak out today, because we must speak out against this kind of anarchy, especially since this president has also been very critical about the Black Lives Matter protesters, or Antifa, which again seems to be more trumped up, no pun intended, than it really is. Meanwhile, there's a great amount of restraint being shown this crowd that is overtaking our nation's capital and the people's house. I'm disappointed as an American. I'm sad, I'm heartbroken as an American. And all this to appease President Trump, who's still not through his 7 stages of grief? Is this going to be worth it? This enormous tear in the fabric of our society, is this all worth it to protect President Trump's ego? These images playing behind me, this is all happening in real time as I broadcast this. But is this who we are? Pray for our country. Pray for America. Pray for President Trump. Pray for those who have sadly gotten caught up in this. Pray for our Capitol Police, the District of Columbia Police, and the National Guard, who will likely be getting involved to try to quell this crowd that has clearly gotten out of control. But also pray for justice. I mean, I pray for peace, but I also pray for justice. Because what you're also seeing is a separate and unequal way of policing. Because again, when you have a group of brown and black people looking not even half as menacing or threatening as this group, which overtook the United States Capitol, for goodness sake, there would have been bullets raining down on that crowd. But we had tear gas and going in both directions, from the Capitol Police to the pro-Trump supporters, and then the pro-Trump supporters deploying tear gas back at the Capitol Police. That's unacceptable. Pray for peace, but pray for justice. I'm Bishop Jack Lumanog, again, the Bishop of the Anglican Diocese of St. Ignatius Loyola, and the host of the podcast Pod Bless Us. And it's available anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find out more about the podcast at podbless.us, podbless.us. I'll have more to say about this in the days to come, but I wanted to respond to Dr. Jamal Bryant's very excellent call for evangelical leaders to speak out against these acts of white anarchy which are unfolding before our very eyes today. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may God bless and protect the United States of America.